Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Warlock 2 the Exiled? It's the sequel to Warlock Master of the Arcane, which was brought to you by Ino-Co Plus, also known as 1C Ino-Co Plus, if you have difficulty hunting them down, and you might, and published by Paradox. The original game was a fairly enjoyable, colourful, nicely put together, although relatively simple 4X strategy game, which was a little bit of a mixture of Civilization and Master of Magic. Along comes Warlock 2 the Exiled. The question is, has it improved upon the original, and what new features does it offer? We will find out. Okay, to the options menu first. So it is kind of what you would expect from a 4X game. There's nothing really out of the ordinary here in terms of the video options. Windowed mode on or off, and then you've got your separate sound sliders right here as well. Game menu is surprisingly lacking. For 4X strategy games, you usually have a lot of different toggleable options. This game doesn't really have much of that, outside of being able to turn off things like autosaving at the end of the turn, and mess around with your unit's animation speed. That's really about it. Which, compared to the amount of customization you can do to your game experience in a game like Civilization 5, well, this isn't really anywhere close. Well, there you go. Alright, so what is it? Well, the single-player campaign isn't a campaign. Campaign's actually empty. There aren't any. One assumes they're going to release some later on. However, if you hit New Game, then you get a couple of different options as to the way you wish to play it. This is the default mode, Exiled mode. And this is where most of the new features are to be found. You also have Sandbox mode right here, which allows you to play the more traditional Warlock experience. Exiled mode is a bit different in the way that the levels are constructed, as well as the various objectives you will have to face. You have to defeat the United One in this. Yeah, there's no real way around that. So let's have a look at character customization and everything like that. So you've got 5 difficulty levels right here, as you can see, all the way down to there. And if we head on over to next, we will see universe configuration here. Small, medium, large, and extra large. That is going to allow you to customize the number of rival great mages you have. And if we go on, then you can have a look at the actual mages themselves. So there are a number of different mages that you can play. You can also, of course, customize their name. Let's go through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11... 12, 13, 14, 15, yeah, 14 different mages of various different races. There's a couple of different races in this one, including the Plane Striders. They have added a little bit. Bear in mind that Warlock originally didn't have as many races as it currently does now, because there was quite a lot of DLC for that game. But you can also customize quite nicely here. If I want to change my starting race, I can do that, and you'll notice that there are 6. There you go. Elves, humans, monsters, Plane Striders, Svarts, because why not? And undead. Most of these were in the original, not all. And then you can mess around with things like perks and spells, which will allow you to customize your play experience, which I like a lot. It's good to have this kind of thing. This is the sort of thing you would expect from the older 4X games, like Master of Orion, and even, of course, Master of Magic has quite a great deal of stuff like this. And you can mess around with your portrait and all sorts of things like that, pick your faction color and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's that. That's how you customize your experience, and then you hit start. Since there is no campaign mode, the Exiled mode is the campaign, and this is what makes it kind of interesting, because it's almost like a randomly generated campaign every time. Let's jump into mine, which is about 3.5 to 4 hours into this game, and then I can show you exactly what I mean by that. Alright, so there is an objective, of course, as you might imagine. And it is going to throw you in and tell you, right, you've got to go do this. Your aim is to defeat the United One. But every time that you do it, it procedurally generates the levels. Now, you might notice this level's a bit small, isn't it? It's very small. Well, there's a reason for that. So in Exile mode, what they've done is they've broken the maps up into these floating islands. And these gateways right here allow you to access those floating islands. So if I want to look at, say, the map, I would click here. And these are the worlds that I've gained access to. There's actually an unknown world up there. I don't know how I get there. I don't think you can get there from here. But you'll see that I've been to this desert world, this lava world. I think that there is another world that yes, the ice world, Ice Hedge, I also have access to. So if I click that, it will not take me there. Okay, that's odd. Huh. That's a bit weird. I'm not really sure why it's not taking me there. It was before. I don't... Okay, I guess I have to go this way. Alright, so if we click, say, Ice Hedge, Double click on that. And it'll take us there. There we go. So that works, and yet for some reason that doesn't. I don't really know why. I don't know why it's not doing that. It may be because I have a unit selected and I've got to do a task with it or something. Alright, so this is another one of these worlds, and if we look at the main map, which is here, you'll notice kind of the size of it. Again, not very big. Got a few cities here and there, and of course some NPC layers to access, and that really is about it. We'll jump out to another one. So my main one here is Hot Sands, and you can see it's got a world type as well as world sizes. It also tells you what happens, which is quite nice. It's like, this one neighbors with a great mage, for instance, and all sorts of things like that. Also, if I click on the various worlds, it will tell me what units I have in these areas. So, pretty much all of my units are currently in Ice Hedge fighting. I have one city there. In Hot Sands, I actually have 6 cities, and I've got 3 cities on my main starting island right here. And then it'll also tell me resources. And of course, just like the original, you can exploit those resources and build various buildings on them. So let's go to Hot Sands, and let's go and have a look at my little empire here. Let's go, yeah, Minotaurus is a reasonably large city. So, just like the original Warlock, you get cities in these hexes, and you expand your domain of influence, and within that, you build stuff on the ground. So, unlike, say, some of the earlier 4X games where everything's built inside this one city unit, it builds outwards, and you've got to exploit the various resources you have available around the area in order to make that work. So if I want to build a gold mine, I can only do that if I've got gold in my sphere of influence, and that will be a specific building that I can construct here, as you can see. So if my city is large enough, which this one currently isn't, as you can see, I will be able to drop down a building on any of these hexes. This, of course, includes defensive buildings as well, so I can put down forts and magic towers to defend my area, shrines to various gods, and special buildings. And you can kind of customize to a reasonable degree, I think you can see a nice little floating magic bazaar there, what you want each city to do. And this time around, it's pretty important that you do that, because there is something within this game which I think is going to be highly controversial to a lot of people. And that is the idea that you are going to have to very much limit the number of cities that you've got. So this is your city limit. Now, by city limit, I mean optimum number of cities. I don't mean an actual city limit like you can't go over it. You can, but there are consequences. This is an unrest bar. Every time you go above your city limit, the unrest bar is going to start to grow, and that's going to cause units to spawn and attack you, basically. So you can have a larger amount of cities than this if you want, but it's certainly recommended that you do not do that all that often. Now, there are ways of expanding this through the research of various pieces of technology. If I go to my research panel here, I notice County Domain Management. I've been putting a lot of points into Wizardry, and that has allowed me to get County Domain Management, which has increased the number of optimal... Try again! Wow! Try again! Good lord. The optimal number of cities that I have available to me. However, there are ways and means around that. Let's say you end up capturing too many cities. Like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Well, that's actually fine. You can go to one of your cities and you can actually set it to be a special city. Which is a little bit of a weird term because it's actually worse than a regular city. Every single time you do this, you cannot hire units or construct buildings in the fortress, but it does not generate unrest. This is the case of all of these. So you've got a free town, a fortress city, and various temple cities, which can be built towards specific gods that you are trying to entreat at the time. It's almost like a more permanent way of saying, yep, this city is now being run by an AI governor. It turns the city over to just being a cash generator that you can still defend, but you don't have to micromanage it. Now, I'm in two minds about this system. And I think a lot of other people are going to be exactly the same when it comes to dealing with this. Some people are going to be really happy with the system. Why? Because a lot of the issues that some players, not all, but some players actually have with this genre are as a direct result of this massive amount of micromanagement you have to deal with when dealing with a lot of cities and units. Yeah. Now, you're still going to have to deal with a lot of units in this, very much so. But dealing with a lot of cities is a little bit easier because you know you've got an optimal limit. Dealing with 7 cities, not that hard. Dealing with 8 cities, fine. You know, dealing with like 20 cities, especially if you happen to be a conqueror and you like to roll over people's cities and take them by force, That can be a bit of a problem, but you want, of course, the income. You want the benefits of being a conqueror, but you don't want any of the hassle of being a conqueror. So it allows you to turn over those cities to just be cash generators or faith generators or defensive cities that can kind of hold your borders without you really having to worry too much about them. That's the advantage of it. The disadvantage of it is that there are also players who are very much expansionists. There's a reason why it's called 4X. Explore, exploit, expand, and exterminate. Not in that order. But expanding is part of the 4 pillars of what actually makes these games 4X.
So, a great mage. You might be strong enough to not be afraid of other vicars of the United One, but you are not so strong to ignore death itself. And I am death incarnate. Pray now, for you have not much time left.
An event. An event. Lich mirrors. Okay, these can certainly be a bit of a problem. Okay. I was in the middle of a point, and I was interrupted by death itself, which is unfortunate, and I feel that has happened to a lot of people in the past, so let's start filling these bastards full of holes. Good job I brought back my stubborn knights. Yes, they are on donkeys. Stubborn knights. They exist, and that's a wonderful thing. I'm going to have to bring my guys back in order to deal with this, I think. This is probably going to get pretty messy. Thankfully, my cities can attack in. Let's conjure a powerful spell, shall we? What's my best spell? Probably Thunderstorm. It's going to take a little bit of time to cast that, but we should be okay. So yes, the other point I was trying to make, basically the other side of that discussion, is that yes, there are people that really love expansion and building a huge empire, a huge economic powerhouse of an empire, and they're going to be far more limited. Some people like to micromanage 20 cities, and they can certainly micromanage a few, no doubt about that, but they're going to be extremely limited compared to other titles. Wow, that spawned a lot of units. Good lord, I'm going to get hit really hard here. And this kind of came out of nowhere as well. This could be a real problem. I don't think I have enough units to fight this off. I'm going to have to bring my stuff back through the portal, and then I'll start fighting. So you're going to have to decide whether or not you happen to be an expansionist that is going to end up being pretty pissed off about this, or whether or not you are going to end up being someone that actually finds that particularly beneficial to you. I'm in two minds about it. I can deal with the whole... Let's see if we can knock this mirror out. Let's give that a try. Actually, I don't think that's going to knock it out, is it? Yeah, we're just going to have to keep fighting until we can clear out this mirror and destroy it. I'm the kind of person that can deal with the mass expansion, but I don't necessarily enjoy it. And I often focus on a small number of very powerful cities, and that's generally not an optimal strategy in most 4X games. So that can definitely be a problem. You can take it or leave it, really. I think it's interesting that they made this decision, and it may very well end up being something that's influential in future 4Xs, and a lot of people might decry them for that, but others might say, you know what, actually that's okay. It's definitely actually a positive thing, in my opinion. It's possible. They might say that. Alright, let's... There we go. She's actually really powerful. I've got a Lord unit right here. They were in the first game as well, but I have someone that's supposedly a healer. She's level 8. Look at all the buffs she has. So many buffs. She is an absolute monster. She's really hard to kill, and she can destroy pretty much anything, which is lovely. And now I'm going to get absolutely wrecked by these guys. Thankfully, it seems like the other Great Mage is fighting it too, so that's going to make my holdings here a little bit easier to hang on to. So let's talk about this event. What happened? This is a big part of the Exiled mode. There are, I wouldn't say there was a large number of events that can happen, and they can kind of happen in different orders. Your main goal is to defeat the United One, but how you get there is going to differ every time. And in this case, I am dealing with this Vicar of Death or whatever, who is summoning these Lich Mirrors into my domain, which is definitely not helping, and I might end up losing one of my cities here. It's under heavy attack. It's going to be difficult to hold on to. Minotaurus is a little bit tougher, but yeah, this is definitely going to suck. This was kind of sprung on me without warning. A lot of the events are, but nothing this severe. So this to me is a bit of a surprise. It's the first time I've seen it, and this is going to be very difficult to deal with because I didn't really have enough units. I just kind of reached a time of peace with my neighboring Great Mage. I'd taken some of his cities, and he just eventually sued for peace. I'm like, okay, fine. That's I'm done with your nonsense. That's not really a problem. So can we put a firestorm down on them? Am I within range to be able to do that? I don't want to do that there. I'd rather hit that if possible. Let's see if that's actually doable. Alright, that can be looted by any unit. Maybe I can send my stubborn knights through there. I just need to deactivate this. Alright, let's take out the Lich Mirror. There we go. Which actually got us an item and 110 mana, which could be useful. And we'll just bounce out of there for a second. Yeah, I think I can do this. I'm probably going to blow myself up in the process, but it might be hilarious. Oh, I moved too far. Damn. This is one of the problems with this game. You have to move nearby to attack, as you might imagine. Very, very similar to Civ 5, but it doesn't really give you a visual indication outside of keeping an eye on these little pips down here. So more often than not, you can take more moves than you actually can in order to attack. Leaves you in a pretty ugly spot where you're just not really able to deal with what's coming at you. You move up and it's like, I'm going to attack, and then you realize, oh, I ran out of moves and I'm right next to the melee guys. This is going to suck. And generally it does. Okay, let's move in and just nuke these guys. You might be wondering why there's no animations. I'm actually skipping the animations by double-clicking, but I will show a couple of them for you. We have a lightning storm ready to go, so let's... I'm going to hit my own guy here, but I think he should be okay. Kaboom. There are a lot of powerful magic spells that you can cast here, and that's very much a focus of the title. But yeah, let's get back to the random events. It's pretty cool because you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. I have a feeling you will run into the same thing multiple times. I don't think there's even a doubt in my mind about that one. I'm going to build an Onodrome on these donkeys. There we go. I want to build a... Nah, I don't want to build another one of those. And I think it's a good substitute for a campaign mode, because frankly, in a game like this, campaign mode is pointless. Absolutely pointless. You don't play 4X games for the campaign most of the time. That's not universally true. Don't get me wrong. Not universally true. But it is true a lot of the time. You know, would you play Civ 5 for a campaign? Probably not. You know, you want to randomly generate a map and go. That's really the way to actually play games like that, in my honest opinion. I can't even do damage to any of these guys. This is not good. Yep, they are somehow immune to all of my magic. Not brilliant. Not at all. I like the idea of going with a campaign that's different every time, where you're kind of telling your own story. I think that's a really good way of doing things, and I'm happy that they elected to go down that route. I think it benefits them quite significantly. I was not wanting to build units. I'm definitely going to lose that city. There's no doubt about that. But screw it. Let's get some Warlocks of Angle out. These guys are not to be messed with. Expensive units. I was saving up 1,000 gold because I currently have a quest to pay a witch to give me a spell, which is going to allow me to stop one of the great mages from harassing me, because I'm able to demonstrate my magical superiority by showing him a spell that he doesn't know. That's currently one of the events that I'm handling in the quest system. So far, outside of this event, which has really kind of been sprung on me unexpectedly and is most likely going to damage my empire quite severely, I'm fairly happy with the way that this system works. I think it's a really strong way of doing it without... You are crafting your own story every single time, which is, I think, the real strength of a game like Civilization. You make your own story. You're not reliant on the game's preset story every time it's different. So I think they're playing to the strengths of the genre, and I feel that that works very, very well. The question, I suppose, on a lot of your minds would be, is this game actually any different?
Will you listen to me?
That's a lot of mana. I'm going to give it to him because I can't fight a war on two fronts right now, so I'm going to accept his demands and give him a spell and things like that. I think that if you have played the original game, you are not going to find a huge amount of things that are different here. It is very similar to the original in many, many ways, up to and including the point that most of the factions have exactly the same units. I look at the wiki because I need to refresh my memory, and I recognize pretty much all of the units on there. And rightfully so, because they are the same as the previous ones. Let's do a firestorm here to try and obliterate the rest of them. Yeah, that should do the job. Do a bit of damage to me, but who cares? Yeah, they're pretty much the same. I like playing the monster race. I like playing the monster race in the first place. I find the rat men to be very funny. This is obviously set in Ardania, which is the same land that Majesty set in. So it's got a little bit of a weird sense of humor going for it, which, again, I think is a strength of the title, certainly. I'm not going to be able to do any damage to any of this stuff, am I? That's... Blech. Absolutely sucks. But I would have thought perhaps they would have expanded the rosters of the various races. They've definitely added new units in, neutral units and things like that, and also, of course, new races, which means that if you end up taking over a city, that one was a Plane Strider city, I was able to build archers from there and things like that, that you do have access to other units, but it just is a little weird not to see that advanced. And most of the mechanics, in fact, I'd say almost all of the mechanics are identical. The Lord system being fleshed out a little bit, but it's pretty much the same as the original game was. The combat is identical. It uses the same sort of systems, i.e. ranged units can fire 1 hex, you have certain castable abilities, there's the perk system, which allows you to upgrade your units with things like protection potions, masterwork armor, stuff that you manufacture in your cities, and you can have a limited amount of them out at any given time. That was all in Master of the Arcane. All of that. So I am struggling outside of the Exiled mode itself and the way that it designs its maps through this procedural generation system to find a huge number of differences. I'm sure that a lot of them are very subtle, and I probably don't notice them because I didn't spend hundreds of hours with Warlock. You know, I played it for like 30 hours, I had my fill, and then I left it, and I said, you know what, yeah, that was pretty good, whatever. This title, I think in a sequel you would maybe expect more. It is highly iterative. It seems to be an improvement, and I think this mode is very strong, and I'm enjoying it a lot. But even then, I am hard-pressed to say to someone that is asking me, is it worth the upgrade? To say yes. Because certainly in some people's minds that is not going to be true. And I can totally understand that, frankly. Let's wreck these fools. I summoned a fire elemental into the middle of this. Now I'm going to probably charge up another thunderstorm. I actually have quite a lot of mana in my resources here, so I can use it to try and defend my city. Should hopefully do the job while I bring the rest of my units in. We can get our stubborn knights, which might be the best unit in any game ever. I don't know, this is almost up to the level of Dire Penguin, having knights on donkeys. They don't retreat, by the way, which is kind of a wonderful little feature. Let's push forward after these skeletons. Excellent. We have finished our research, which is good. We'll research a new spell. Almost done in this area. I can advance on to the next one. Let's get... Ice Ring could be useful. Let's get Agricultural Theory. I just want to increase my food production, just make a stronger empire in general. And I can build something. Considering what's coming down here, I think a fort might be useful. Yeah, let's try and get a fort down. That should help me defend this area. And in this case... University? Yeah, why not? We can do that. This is a kind of a highly magical city that I'm working on here, so I don't see any reason not to do that. Yeah, highly iterative. Gonna be a problem for a lot of people. I think that it's maybe not unreasonable to expect a mode like this to actually be DLC. And they have done it before. Their Armageddon DLC was quite similar to that, in the sense that they added sort of a completely new mode and changed the way that the game was played. I think the Exiled mode is obviously very technically competent, and I would imagine is quite complicated to make. The idea of having these randomly generated events that don't all come at you at once, randomly generated levels that have everything you need within them to explore. I mean, not only is that enjoyable to play, but it also has to be an absolute nightmare to balance properly. And they seem to have done that. It seems to work, I've got to say. I don't have too many objections. I think that what had just dropped on me was pretty damn evil, but I think I should be able to handle it. I'm starting to get things back. I lost one city, okay. And every now and again, it is nice to be kicked out of your comfort zone. And I was feeling comfortable, because before this, I was saying, well, I was going to actually level a criticism at the game. This is, of course, the risk of first impressions, and also why you should take all of these videos with an absolute pinch of salt, bearing in mind that I have only played a certain amount of this game up to this point. And I was going to say, oh, well, once you've taken over one of these islands, you're kind of untouchable, and the AI doesn't often attack you through the portals, so what are you even worried about? I ventured into a lava world where I got my ass kicked, and I just retreated from there. Nothing's come through the portal to attack me. I thought maybe I would have upset them by doing so, but no, nothing happened. But as it turns out, yes, there are random events that can really hit you pretty hard, and in this case, they absolutely are. Speaking of random events, this mage I was talking about earlier is changing the terrain randomly, which... I don't know what the effect of that is, because it doesn't tell you immediately, but if I hover over it, you'll see, oh, icy plains, they produce less food, which is less than ideal, and I certainly wish that they wouldn't do that. It's rather annoying, isn't it? Okay. Do I want to increase my mana production? No, I really need to increase my cash production at this point. So let's just keep working at that. And start to smash those. I think the Lich Mirror has been defeated here, which is good. So we just need to have a look at the other Lich Mirrors. And try and fight our way through here. My Thunderstorm's not ready, but my Fire Elementals are still attacking, so that's good. And my Stubborn Knights are ready to crash into the rear of this target here. I'll show you the animations. There you go. They're quite nice. I mean, the whole game looks good. There's no doubt about it. It is a nice hex-based game. It's very colorful. The spell effects are particularly good. Some of the more powerful spells look very impressive indeed. The combat is certainly repetitive, of course, because that's what it does. It's hex-based Civ-style combat. It's one unit per tile. It's gonna handle this way, and there's no way you can really get around it. What I don't like is the fact that there doesn't seem to be a way of stopping your units from pestering you. Like, you can't just put them on Fortify, and they'll just go to sleep until attacked. You can't do that. You've got to move them every single time. There might be a hotkey for it, but as you can see, if we go to the options menu, no hotkeys anywhere, which is kind of silly. You would like to have both key rebinding and a list of hotkeys, and the game actually has neither of those things. Outside of the enter button, which is useful to have, there's not a lot of information here. Can I open the quest panel? I don't know. There's not even a hover over tooltip here that would tell me. So, no, it's odd. It's really, really odd. Alright, well, what is my conclusion on it? I would be lying if I said I wasn't having fun. You know I like this genre, and I expressed my like for the original title as well. I liked Warlock Master of the Arcane. I thought was pretty good. No doubt about that. I think Warlock 2 the Exiled is pretty good as well. I think that some people are going to have difficulty justifying the purchase, because it is a very iterative sequel. It does a lot of the same. The campaign mode is very good, and I certainly think it warrants multiple playthroughs, especially with the large number of races at your disposal. But I'm kind of concerned that the game might end up being very DLC heavy again, as the previous title was as well, and that they're holding back things like race content and new units to be DLC. And the reason I'm concerned about that is that the game actually has a significant number of pre-order bonuses, which indicate to me that actually, yes, they are more than willing to do that. And they would like you to purchase the I think it's called the Great Mage pack or something like that. They would like for you to do that. And I get that. I understand they need to make money, especially on a niche title, but that doesn't really sit right with me. I don't like it when I see companies doing that. And in a sequel, you would just expect more. You would expect your races to have been really expanded and not just merely tweaked. On the plus side, it does mean that pretty much every unit is useful in one way or the other. You don't get unit redundancy. I think to some degree, if you look at the tier system of a game like, say, Age of Wonders, there is an argument that the basic units don't really do much after a while. Let's give them some masterwork armor. So my noble werewolves are gonna slice these guys into tiny little pieces. There we go. That's what I like to see. That said, the upkeep is a big issue in a game like Age of Wonders, so I don't think that's necessarily a particularly good argument one way or the other. Let's see if we can bring this lightning storm down. Where was my... I had a city that was under attack. I think it was on my other island. So let's just hop on over to that. Accessing the other islands is fine, honestly. I don't have a problem with it. I think it could, if this worked better, like just to be able to go through it, or there was hotkey... Oh, now, what? Now it's working. I don't know. I have no explanation for that. Half of the time it works, half the time it doesn't, it seems to. Here you go. I have some lightning, you assholes. There we go. Look at that. That's pretty cool. That should do the trick. And we need to start building some units here as well to clean stuff up. Thankfully, I do have a large city here that should be able to produce some units that would do the job. Probably some Ratman robbers would do the job quite nicely. And we'll just keep charging up the spells. And I think we'll hit them with one more of those. Just to try and clean them out of the way. It's a decent 4X. Some people are not going to be okay with the fact that it is very iterative. I'm personally okay with it, and I don't know if that's because... I mean, the game is good, but so was the last one. So to me, it's a case of, oh, great. I have another excuse to kind of play more Warlock, but with some updates and a different mode. And I think that's really why I'm engaged in it right now, not because it's a really good sequel, just because I wanted to maybe play more Warlock, which I could have really done with the DLC as well, but it's not that Warlock 2 is a bad game, it's just that it is not maybe what you would expect out of a sequel, and again, I am concerned that they will really expand the game in DLC instead of the sequel. You know, let's be honest, the sequel, having a sequel is one of the big opportunities that you have for expanding your game in a big way. And outside of this Exiled mode, I don't necessarily think they did. It's still a good game. I still like the city management. I think you'll take it or leave it on the city limits kind of thing. The diplomacy is pretty much the same as the previous game. In other words, it's basic and not as good as Civ, which is what I've been saying about a lot of 4Xs lately, and rightfully so. It is not as good as Civilization, but it's functional. The AI seems alright. It's falling into some predictable behaviors, like it'll get aggressive, make demands, then attack you, and then sue for peace after that when it realizes that you're not powerful enough. But to be fair, Civ does that as well, so... diplomacy's been very difficult to deal with outside of maybe some of the grand strategy games that very much focus on it. It does the job, and it doesn't really get in the way too much, and you can just roll over people anyway if you want to, which is, fun in of itself. So there you go, folks. Warlock 2 Exiled should be available today for $30 or your regional equivalent on Steam. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.